Hi everyone, today I'll be sharing the 10 biggest HDB resale buying mistakes I see buyers make time and time again. Whether you're buying your first home, upgrading, or purchasing after turning 35 as a single, these tips could potentially save you tens of thousands of dollars and help you make a much smarter property decision. So before you make one of the biggest purchases of your life, let's dive into the 10 HDB resale buying mistakes you should avoid. Let's start with what I believe is the biggest mistake first-time HDB buyers make. They start by opening Property Guru, scroll through all the listings, save their favorite units, and book viewings every weekend. But that's one problem. They don't actually know how much they can afford. Many buyers think that their budget is simply the maximum loan the bank or HDB is willing to give them. But that's only one part of the picture. Buying a home involves many other costs that people often neglect about. For example, your down payment, buyer's stamp duty, legal fees, valuation fees, agent's fees, renovation costs, furniture and appliances, moving expenses, and perhaps most importantly, having enough emergency savings after the purchase. Imagine this, you found your dream resale flat, the price is within your loan eligibility, everything looks perfect. Then you realize you still need tens of thousands of dollars for renovation, furniture, and other upfront costs. Suddenly, you're stretching your finances just to complete the purchase. That's not the position you want to be in. Just because you can afford the money installment doesn't mean that you can afford it comfortably. Remember, you still have other financial responsibilities after buying a home. You may need to pay for unexpected repairs, you might change jobs, your family expenses could increase. That's why it's important to leave yourself a financial buffer instead of using every last dollar to buy the most expensive property you qualify for. So, how do you avoid this mistake? Before you attend a single viewing, work out your true buying budget. Don't just calculate the purchase price. Calculate the total cost of ownership. Ask yourself, how much CPF do I have available? How much CPF do I have? How much cash do I need upfront? What are my stamp duties and legal fees? How much will renovation cost? Do I have enough left for furniture and appliances? If something unexpected happens after I move in, do I still have 3 to 6 months of emergency savings? If the answer is no, you may need to adjust your budget before making an offer. Here's another mistake that can cost you tens of thousands of dollars. Overpaying for resale HDB because you don't actually know what it's worth. Now, you might be thinking, can't I just check the recent HDB transaction prices online? Well, yes, but here's the problem. The transaction price only tells you what someone paid. It doesn't tell you what they were paying for. So let me explain. Imagine you see that a similar unit in the same block was recently sold for several hundred thousand. So naturally, when another seller asks for 700,000, you think that seems fair. But what you don't know is this. The previous unit may have been fully renovated just 2 years ago, or is facing a quiet park with an unblocked view. It might be in a better state with less afternoon sun. Now, compare that to the unit you're viewing. Maybe it's in a completely original condition, facing a busy main road, low floor, needs a full renovation, has more wear and tear. So, should both units command the same price? Probably not. This is why evaluating a resale HDB is much more complicated than simply looking at past transactions. In fact, some blocks don't even have many recent transactions. Maybe only 1 or 2 units were sold over the past year. So, what do you compare against? How much adjustments should you make for a higher floor? What if the layout is different? These are questions most first-time buyers simply don't know how to answer, and that's how buyers end up overpaying. Here's another common scenario. You agree to buy a flat at 750,000. The valuation comes back at 730,000. That means you now have to pay 20,000 COV entirely in cash. Now, paying COV isn't automatically a bad thing. Sometimes it's perfectly reasonable if the flat is exceptional. For example, it may have a rare layout, a premium unblocked view, high quality renovations, a highly sought after stack, or unique attributes that buyers are willing to pay extra for. The key question isn't, am I paying COV? The real question is this COV justified? Because if you're paying a premium for genuine value, that's one thing. But if you're paying a premium simply because you didn't know how to assess the property through its worth, that's a very expensive mistake. So how do you avoid this? Don't rely on just one recent transaction. Look at multiple comparable resales, or get an agent to properly assess the valuation price, so you don't overpay for a property purchase and pay for what it's worth. Here's another mistake that many buyers only realize years after they bought the flat. They fall in love with the renovation, but completely forgot to check one of the most important numbers: the remaining lease. Imagine you're viewing two HDB flats. One is beautifully renovated. It has a modern kitchen, designer lighting, and stylish bathrooms. The other is older and needs some renovation. Most buyers immediately gravitate towards the renovated unit. What if I told you that this beautiful unit only has 62 years of lease remaining while the other has 85 years left? Would that change your decision? For many buyers, it should. Because while renovations can always be changed, the lease can never be extended. Every day you own the flat, the lease gets shorter. This is what's commonly referred to as lease decay. Now, does that mean you should never buy an older HDB? Not at all. In fact, some older flats offer fantastic value. They may have larger floor areas, more spatial layout, mature estate amenities, excellent connectivity, so buying an older flat isn't automatically a bad decision. The key is understanding what the shorter lease means for you in the future. As the remaining lease decreases, it may affect several things. First, financing. Depending on the remaining lease and the buyer's age, some future buyers may not be able to borrow as much. Second, CPF usage. In certain situations, CPF usage may be affected if the remaining lease doesn't meet the applicable requirements. Third, your future resale market. When you eventually decide to sell, your buyer is likely asking the same questions you are asking today. If financing becomes more challenging for some buyers, your pool of potential purchasers may become smaller. And when few buyers can purchase your flat, selling may take longer or require a more competitive price. This is why I always tell my clients, don't just buy a flat for today's price. Think about who will buy it from you in the future. Here's another point many buyers overlook. A beautifully renovated 40-year-old flat can actually be more expensive than an unrenovated younger flat nearby. Why? Because buyers see the beautiful renovation and emotionally justify paying more. But 5 or 10 years later, the renovation has aged. The kitchen isn't as modern anymore. The flooring is no longer new. The renovation loses value over time, but the lease keeps getting shorter. That's why I always encourage buyers to separate the value of renovation from the value of the property itself. Don't let a 50,000 renovation distract you from making a decision on a property that's worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. So how do you avoid this mistake? Whether you're considering an older HDB flat, ask yourself these questions. How many years of lease are remaining? How long do I intend to hold this property? Will the remaining lease still be attractive when I eventually sell? Who is my likely buyer in 5 or 10 years? Am I paying for the property itself, or am I paying mainly for renovation that will eventually become outdated? Here's a mistake I see quite often. Many buyers tell me, I'm going to wait. Prices are too high now. I'll buy when the market comes down. On the surface, that sounds like a sensible strategy. After all, everyone wants to buy at a lower price. But here's the problem. Nobody knows when or if that price drop will happen. The property market doesn't move in a straight line. Some years prices rise. Some years they stay relatively flat. Some years certain locations perform better than others. Waiting for the perfect time can sometimes mean sitting on the fence for years. And during that time, a few things can happen. If prices continue to rise, the same flat you were considering today may cost more in the future. Interest rates could change. Your preferred location may become more expensive, or the type of flat you wanted may become harder to find. On the other hand, prices could soften, but your own circumstances may also change. Your income, loan eligibility, or personal plans may be different by then. The point is this: Don't base your decision solely on trying to predict the market. Instead, ask yourself, can I comfortably afford the property today? Does it fit my long-term needs? Am I financially prepared to buy? If the answer is yes, buying a well-priced property that suits your goals may be a better decision than waiting for the perfect market. Now, that doesn't mean you should rush into buying. If you're not financially ready or you haven't found the right unit, waiting can absolutely make sense. The key difference is this: wait because you have a strategy, not because you're hoping prices will magically fall. That's a much more informed way to make a property decision. This is one of the biggest budgeting mistakes I see first-time HDB buyers make. They spend months calculating their loan. They know exactly how much CPF they have. They'll work out their monthly installments. Then they successfully buy the flat. And suddenly, they realize they still need another 50 to 80,000 to make it livable. Many buyers think that once they're paid for the property, the hard part is over. In reality, that's when the next major expenses begin. Depending on the condition of the flat, you may need to pay for hacking and demolition work, new flooring, carpentry, kitchen cabinets, bathroom renovation, painting, electrical rewiring, air conditioning, furniture, appliances. Even if you're not planning for a full renovation, these costs add up very quickly. I've seen buyers who budgeted every dollar for the purchase only to realize they didn't have enough cash left to renovate the home the way they wanted. As a result, they had to delay renovations, take out on additional loans, compromise on the quality of their renovations. So how can you avoid these mistakes? Before you even make an offer for a flat, start thinking about the renovation costs. If possible, bring an interior designer or contractor along during one of the viewings. Ask them for a rough estimate based on the condition of the unit. You don't need an exact quotation, but even a ballpark figure will help you understand the true cost of buying that home. And don't forget about furniture and appliances. If you are moving into your first home, you'll probably need to buy almost everything from scratch. Those expenses can easily add another 10 to 20,000 on top of your renovation budget. Sometimes paying a little more for a genuine move-in ready unit can actually save you money overall because you avoid major renovation work and can move in much sooner. Many buyers focus on beautiful flooring, fancy lighting, designer kitchens, but forget to evaluate something you can't easily change: the layout. Ask yourself, is there wasted corridor space? Is the living room oddly shaped? Can furniture fit comfortably? Is the kitchen practical? Is there enough storage? Renovation can be changed, layout cannot be changed. Prioritize good layout over irregular layout can help save you money and make it easier to resell in future. Here's another mistake that can cost buyers tens of thousands of dollars: falling in love with what you can see and forgetting to check what you can't. During a viewing, it's easier to be distracted by beautiful renovations. The seller has nicely staged the home. The lights are on. The furniture looks great. Everything looks perfect. But remember, you're buying the property, not the decoration. Once you collect the keys, the hidden problem becomes your problems. I have seen buyers move into what they thought was a moving condition flat, only to discover issues like ceiling leaks in the bathrooms, hollow or cracked floor tiles, mold in the room, faulty electrical wiring that needs rewiring, leaking pipes and plumbing problems. Suddenly, what seems like a great deal becomes a very expensive renovation project. A repair that you never budgeted for can easily cost 10 to 20,000 or even more, depending on the extent of the damage. So, what should you do during a viewing? Take your time and look carefully at the ceilings for water stains or signs of past leaks, the walls for cracks, bubbling paint, or mold, the flooring for uneven surfaces or hollow tiles, the windows to make sure they open, close, and lock properly, the toilets for signs of water damage, poor waterproofing, or leaking pipes. And don't be afraid to ask the seller questions. For example, has this unit experienced any water leakage before? When was the electrical wiring last replaced? Have there been any major repairs or renovations? Are all the renovations approved when necessary? If you are buying an older resale flat, here's one piece of advice that can save you a lot of money. Bring along a contractor for the viewings. That expert opinion could save you from buying a property that requires unexpected repairs after completion. It's always better to spend an extra hour inspecting a property than to spend the next few years paying for expensive repairs. Here's a mistake that many first-time buyers don't realize they're making. They buy a home based on who they are today instead of who they'll become in the next 5 to 10 years' time. When you're buying your first HDB, it's natural to focus on your current needs. Maybe you're single, maybe you're a newly married couple, maybe you're thinking, I only need one bathroom. Or, this location is good enough for now. But here's the thing, your first HDB isn't just a home, it's also a long-term financial decision. Life can unexpectedly change, and you get married and have children 5 years down the road. Ask yourself, will you get married? Will you have children? Will your parents need to live with you? Will you own a car? Will you want to upgrade to a condo one day? These are all possibilities that can change what you need in a home. For example, a single may think a 3-room flat is more than enough today, but if the buyer gets married a few years down later, suddenly the extra bedroom becomes a nursery or a home office. A couple may buy a unit because it's close to their current workplace. Then, both of them change jobs, and the daily commute becomes much longer. Or perhaps you buy a beautiful flat on a very high floor because you love the view, only to realize it's a 15-minute walk from the MRT, and that long walk becomes frustrating every single day. These are lifestyle changes that many buyers don't think about when they are excited about purchasing their first home. But there's another side to this as well. Your future plans don't just affect how comfortable you'll be living there, they also affect how easy it will be to move on when the time comes. If your goal is to upgrade to a condo in the future, you'll want to buy an HDB that's attractive to the next buyer. Think about things like, is it near an MRT station? Does it have an effective layout? Is the remaining list still healthy? Is it in a location with strong demand? Will families want to buy this flat after 5 years from now? Because if your flat is easier to sell, upgrading becomes much easier and smoother. I always tell my buyers this. Don't just think about your entry strategy. Think about your exit strategy too. One simple exercise I recommend is to imagine you already own the flat for 5 years. Now, ask yourself, if I need to sell this property today, will buyers be lining up to view it? Or would they walk away because of the layout, location, lease, or other factors? If the answer worries you today, you will probably worry your future buyers too. So before you make an offer, don't just ask, do I like this home? Ask yourself, will this home still suit my lifestyle in 5 years? Will it support my future plans? Will it still be easy to sell if my circumstances change? Because buying property isn't just about solving today's housing problem. It's about making a decision that continues to work for you as your life changes. Here's a question I always ask my buyers. If you need to sell this flat 5 or 10 years from now, would someone else want to buy it? Most first-time buyers never think about that. They're so focused on one question. Can I afford this flat? But the better question is, will this flat still be attractive when it's time for me to move on? Because for most people, your first HDB isn't your forever home. Life changes. You might get married, have children, or need a bigger space. When that day comes, you'll want a flat that's easier to sell. Unfortunately, not every HDB has strong resale potential. Some buyers unknowingly choose flats with characteristics that make them harder to sell, such as an off-walk or inefficient layouts with lots of wasted space, a low floor facing the multi-story car park or a busy main road, long walking distance to the MRT or amenities, older flats with significantly less decay. Now, this doesn't mean you should avoid these flats completely. Every property has a buyer at the right price. But you should understand how these factors may affect your future options before you commit. A property isn't just a place to live, it's also one of the biggest financial assets you'll own. So don't just buy for today's lifestyle. Buy with an exit strategy in mind so you have more options when you want to upgrade in future. By the time you reach this point, you may be thinking, wow, there are actually a lot more things to consider than I expected. And that's exactly why this final mistake can be the most expensive of them all. Many first-time buyers thinking buying HDB is straightforward. They tell themselves, I'll just browse through Property Guru, arrange some viewings, negotiate a little, and submit the paperwork. It sounds simple. But once the buying process starts, they realize there are dozens of decisions that can have long-term financial consequences. Questions like, am I paying above market value? Is this flat likely to appreciate in the future? Will the remaining lease affect my resale value? Is this layout practical, or will I regret it after moving in? Are there hidden renovation costs that can't see during the viewing? Most buyers don't ask these questions because they simply don't know they should. And unfortunately, by the time they realize they make a mistake, it's too late. You can't simply just return an HDB flat like you return something you bought online. You're making a commitment that could last years. That's why buying a home isn't just about finding the nicest renovation or the cheapest price. It's about making the right financial decision. The right guidance can help you avoid expensive mistakes. Sometimes that means advising you not to buy a particular unit. Sometimes it means negotiating a better price that can save you tens of thousands of dollars. Sometimes it means pointing out risks like lease decay, poor layouts, future competition from nearby MOP flats, or renovation issues that you might never have noticed on your own. At the end of the day, a good property advisor shouldn't just help you just buy a house. They should help you buy the right house, because you're spending hundreds of thousands or even $1 million, making the wrong decisions can be incredibly costly, while making the right one can benefit you for years. Buying an HDB is one of the biggest financial decisions you'll make, and avoiding just one of these mistakes could save you thousands or even tens of thousands of dollars. If you are planning to buy a resale HDB and need someone to guide you through financing, grants, valuation, viewing checklists, and negotiation, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always happy to help buyers make informed decisions before they commit. If you found this video helpful, give it a like, subscribe for more property insights. I'll see you in my next video.